Chapter 3. As the sun made its way down toward the horizon, Ollie and Tuck stalked up the dusty lane in Watchful proper. Ollie's mind whirled like the dust storms of summer, his dirt-stained fingers fidgeting with the bag of dried meat. The old Velk was right, and Ollie knew it. He didn't have enough pelts and meat stored up for the winter, and things were already scarce. If he didn't do something soon, there wouldn't be enough to go around when the snow began. People passed by, trying not to trip over Tuck, who dashed about through the street, narrowly avoiding more than one hastily thrown kick. Ollie couldn't say how many people lived in Watchful exactly, but perhaps 150, maybe 2. It was a busy place with folks running about and making a commotion about this or that. To Ollie, it formed a comfortable sort of loud. All around him, the people he'd known his whole life did what they'd done for as long as anyone could remember. Their hands created the thrumming sounds of doing. Milk was turned to cheese, holes in boots and skirts were mended, wood was carved, bread was baked, iron was beaten and shaped, all in an interconnected web of noise, sights, and smells. It was all familiar, including the side-eyed stare thrown Ollie's way. Most didn't take too well to the Strayazar or their hounds. The call drew all the animals into the wood, which meant few souls born and raised in Watchful had seen any beasts, wild or domesticated. About the only way to see something with 4 legs was to work one of the ranches. But the cattle there became so crazed, living under the sound of the call, that they were dangerous in the extreme. The sounds of their frantic bleating and mooing were like the cries of children in the night. And if the breeze blew westward to carry the noise up the hill, there would be a whole host of restless sleepers. So most treated Ollie and Tuck with a tolerated suspicion. Tolerated because traders came yearly for, above all, the pelts from the wood. They were, Ollie was told, finer than anything else the traders could get their hands on throughout Trevelar, which made the Strayazar valuable enough to keep around, even if it was at arm's length. Ollie stopped at a small cottage with solid walls and a roof which hadn't leaked in weeks. It also hadn't rained in weeks, so Ollie's painstaking work with pitch and shingle likely wouldn't be tested until the first snow. The window shutters were closed and smoke gently ascended from the chimney. Without so much as slowing his pace, Ollie pushed open the door and stepped inside as the reddish-brown blur that was Tuck shoved past his feet, nearly toppling him. "Oi, you're going to kill me, dog." "Oi," a female voice called out from inside. "Close the door, won't you? Letting in a draft." Ollie kicked the door shut, then pried off his boots and socks before he could be called out for dragging dirt and mud inside. He sighed as his feet touched the warm floorboards, smoothed from years of Riker feet and stained with a million tiny memories. Though the outside was as plain as the homes to its left and right, the inside of the Riker home was a testament to Watchful's propensity to draw to itself those who didn't belong anywhere else. All one large room with 2 lofts to either side, the cottage was a flurry of colored rugs, animal heads mounted to the wall, and rough-hewn shelves filled with knickknacks and totems from all around the world, not only the kingdom of Trevelar, but from the Bada Republic to the north and Velik to the east. At the fireplace, tending carefully to a stew smelling of vegetables and earthy herbs, was a woman twice Ollie's age and from whom he took his looks, including his darker skin and lanky form. Orelda didn't turn as she said, "And how is my favorite son this morning, eh?" Ollie snorted. "Midland to south, I'd say. The chill is coming on quick, and I can't seem to nab anything bigger than a stuffed rat." When Orelda turned, her thick braided hair bobbed over the open stew, her hand still twirling the ladle around the pot. "Aye, but look at you. Back home, alive, and without a scratch on that beautiful face of yours. That's enough for today, Oliver." Ollie shuffled about, putting away his things and letting his body and mind settle into the patterns of home. "And tomorrow, and the next day, it's not enough, and you know it. Inej mentioned traders will be here soon. If I don't... That old oaf of a giant don't know nothing, she said, waving a hand dismissively as she turned back to the stew. Before he stumbled on in town, we did just fine, me and your father. Even in lean years, we made it. Just be cautious, stick to the wood's edge, and we'll be fine. Ollie fell into a creaky chair at the table beside the fire. From there, he could see the firelight in his mother's eyes and the cracking of her dried lips. He sighed, not wanting to argue, but knowing there was more to be said. Instead, he watched his mother for a moment. She was beautiful, and still of marrying age. It was a mystery she hadn't found another husband after Ollie's father had died, and perhaps someone with a bit more coin, too. To Ollie, it made her stronger, as if her singleness stood as an act of defiance, a way to say to Watchful, to the world, that she had power on her own. She was strong on her own. I might not be staying on the wood's edge for long, Ollie said, voice growing quiet. There's no game, Ma. And like it or not, you and Pa never had a winter without a deer hide or two. His mother stayed quiet for a long time, with nothing but the small crackling of logs and Tuck's loud panting from the corner breaking up the silence. She had a way of setting her jaw, lips creasing downward, which made Ollie unsure if she was ready to fight or to admit the hard truth. Well, she said after a time, you ain't got to go it alone. Before you do something rash like that, I could... No. Oi, no. You ain't going in there. Before you were born, your father and I... You told me, and I don't care. Ollie leaned forward, wiping his hands in the air as if he could swipe away her words. Pa's judgment wasn't ever the best, or he wouldn't... Ollie cut off the words before they could go further, but he'd said enough. Orelda's cheeks flushed and her lips drew to a line. She released a sharp breath through her nose for a moment, nostrils flaring like a boar about ready to charge. Ollie coughed, his own cheeks growing warm. Ma, Oh, I know it. You didn't mean it, did you? Ollie sat back, biting the inside of his cheek. Course you didn't. Yet here we are, you spitting judgment at the very man you're a spitting image of. All the way down to the way you throw them words about. Ma, really, I'm sorry. Hush. Ollie had enough sense to listen, and his shoulders slumped as he breathed out, forehead dropping into the palm of his hand. He felt too tired for the sparring, too tired, too hungry. Well, we can talk about that later, Orelda said with a wave of her ladle. Drips of stew splashed along the wooden floorboards, piquing Tuck's interests. You're stressed about money, eh? Well, your sister's been busy of late. Maybe this winter each of us can do our part. Ollie perked up. It's settled then. She'll be working... It's settled then? She'll be working for Mr. Higgins? Don't know if it's settled yet. We'll find out soon. If the rumors be true, they'll be paying a sight more than that pittance of a Thatcher old seems to... Don't know if it's settled yet. We'll find out soon. If the rumors be true, they'll be paying a sight more than that pittance old Thatcher seems fit to have me scramble for. I swear, if he mumbles one more thing about the responsibility of good indebted folk, I'll strangle his hide myself. It'll end one day. Won't be long now. Just, what, another winter then? Then I'll be free of that toad of a man and his beckoning. I mean, the nerve of him to be taking advantage of a distressed widow when... The door opened, and a thin-framed figure slid inside and kicked the door shut, as both Ollie and Orelda yelled, "Shut the door!" I know it already. Can't you give me half a moment? Ollie's little sister, a woman of 19 now, dropped the hood of her cloak and kicked off her boots. Her eyes hard and her mouth turned down into a scowl. Her cheekbones were high like their mother's, but her bright brown eyes and wide ears were their father's. Orelda kept turning the stew, her face unchanged as she saw her daughter. But Ollie noticed a subtle droop in her shoulders as if she already knew what was to come. Well, Orelda said, turning back to the pot, tell us, Layla, how'd it go? How'd it go? Layla slapped a bare foot against the plank floorboards. I'll tell you how'd it go. That slimy, no-good, dirt-eating, mud-licking son of a roach is screwing me over. Mr. Yiggins? Ollie asked, cocking his head to the side. What? Layla asked, looking at him, her full head of curly hair bobbing around her face and falling into her eyes. How stupid are you? No, not Mr. Yiggins, but that sick little Winston tote. He's making darn sure ain't no one be hiring me, and I'm about ready to get my fingers around his slimy little throat and... Enough, Orelda warned, eyeing her daughter. Won't do no good making such death threats around here. Ollie looked at his mother and raised an eyebrow, her own threats lingering in his mind. Well, Layla continued, if we don't do something, it'll be us whose graves get dug this winter. We can't be living without no coin in... Oh, stop it, child, Orelda said, standing straight up to reach for the bowl on one of the shelves. Ain't no graves being dug this winter. We'll be fine. Well, from your lips to the clouds, Mama, but don't be blaming me if I ain't sharing your faith, Layla said, shaking her head and kneeling down to pet Tuck, who'd come to her, belly up for scratches. And Deus hears, I'm sure, Orelda said, scooping stew into bowls. Ollie scratched his beard, head cocked in confusion. I don't think I'm understanding it at all. You're saying Winston doesn't want you working? Aye, he wants to take me for a tumble in the sheets instead, Layla said in a huff. Layla, Orelda chided, placing steaming bowls of stew on the table. It's true, Mama. Layla pulled a chair free from the table, falling into it. So, Ollie said, the word coming out slow and long. He had a strange nagging in the back of his mind, similar to the feeling of following a game trail and waiting to be ambushed by maker knows what. Winston doesn't want you to work, because he wants you to, well... Layla sighed, rolling her eyes, looking ready to curse the maker for having to deal with a brother so thick. Winston wants to marry me, Ollie. He's asked me so many times that half the town thinks we're already rolling about in the hayloft. Orelda tutted in frustration as she sat, but Ollie kept going before she could cut in. Winston's Gregor's boy, eh? Aye, Layla said, grabbing her spoon and greedily taking bites. Ain't no boy no more, though. Ollie paused. The Tote family lived in the nicest of the mansions on the top of the hill, called the Warden. Gregor Tote was the magistrate, tasked with collecting taxes and overseeing the town guard, small as it was. Around Watchful, the Totes generally had their way, and to their credit, they didn't often push too far. They kept an odd sort of peace between the Hilltoppers and the rest of Watchful. So he's trying to starve you out? Keep you from work till you finally go on and marry him? Aye, that's the thick of it. But, I mean, you? Ollie quirked an eyebrow. Layla's eyes flicked with flame that was probably a reflection of the light. Her reddened cheeks weren't a trick of the light, though. She leaned forward, jabbing a finger at his chest. She leaned forward, jabbing a finger at her chest. Hi, me. Yeah, think that's so crazy, Oliver Ricker, do ya? I ain't the only one here who sees it, eh? Just 'cause you're off frolicking in your fancy forest out there dancing with wolves or whatever, don't mean your sister ain't growing up and turning them heads and... Whoa, now, Ollie said, but Layla only grew louder. Some of the boys now want to tie the knot, but all I was trying to say... Enough! Orelda wielded her spoon like a spear, pointing its stew-laden tip at each of the children. Her voice was sharp, her eyes sharper, and both Ollie and Layla closed their mouths. Orelda sighed a moment later, leaning back and dabbing the sides of her mouth with a small cloth. Layla's probably right. Winston's got his eyes on your sister a few months back and ain't letting it go. Even come knocking around here more than once. He knows things are tight, Ollie. Probably thinks if your sister can't work, she'll say yes to his fancies. The Totes ain't hurting for no coin, that's for sure. He's treating me like a backroom whore, Layla said, and Ollie thought he caught as much shame as anger in the last word. Well, I'll be, Ollie said, leaning back and running a hand through his hair. Didn't think none of them Hilltoppers would think twice, but us seems, well... Orelda shrugged. Winston's the youngest of the Tote boys. His brothers married respectable types already, and 2 even left Watchful to do it. I don't think anybody's got their eyes on Winston much. He can probably be with whoever he wants to be, I think. And he wants what he wants, Layla said. Even if he got me, which he won't, then he'd probably drop me like a gnawed bone when he was done. I ain't no fool. There's no wedding at the end of whatever he wants. Not really. And I ain't the first he's done this to either. Same story with Pris down the way, Maybell too. Promises, promises, and promises. And then he's bored and moved on. At the word bone, Tuck whimpered a bit, and Ollie grabbed a bit of meat from the stew and dropped it on the ground for him. And there ain't no work in the fields? He asked. Layla shrugged. I'll ask again, but there's already too many workers and not enough harvest. And before anyone asks, I've been asking about work up and down the hill. Ain't much about. And Winston has put a word about town, and ain't nobody want to pick a fight with the magistrate, especially before winter. Ollie nodded again, his mind racing as he leaned forward and began to slowly eat his stew. Inside, emotions stirred up in him, but he kept his expression flat. He conjured up an image of Winston in his mind, trying to remember the last time he'd seen him. It had been a while. Ollie was spending more and more time in the wood and less around town. Quietly, though, he promised himself he'd make time to find Winston soon enough. Oi, Orelda snapped, hand gently slapping Ollie's own. No. What? Ollie said, leaning back. You keep your fists to yourself, Oliver. I see what your mind's thinking, and you can't fix this problem by breaking a nose. We'll wait it out. Winston will give up soon enough, I'm sure. Ollie spread his arms out to the side. Oi, I wouldn't think of it, Ma. Layla snorted. Well, either you were thinking about knocking Winston flat or you were thinking about putting an arrow through his eye. She looked distant. And you know, I'm fine with either if you ask me. Layla, Orelda said, exasperated. But Layla only shrugged.